Chapter 61. Strong Reversal. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Chapter 61. Strong Reversal. What? Qin Ran suspected she had heard wrong and wanted to dig her ear clean. She turned to the side, her left hand on the back of the chair as she stared indifferently at the two of them. Say that again. Qin Ran smiled and asked very politely. However, Lin Wan noticed that her eyes were cold and she wasn't actually smiling. Lin Wan frowned slightly, turning thoughtful and hesitant. Could Lin Qi's stepdaughter also have such an expression? In the blink of an eye, the girl had withdrawn her gaze and lowered her eyes slightly. Qin Ran sat down with her back against the window. The window was half open and her expression couldn't be seen against the light. Lin Wan sneered lightly. She must have seen wrongly. How could she have that kind of expression? Ning Qin felt like her thoughts were very normal, but she didn't dare to face Qin Ran directly and just squeezed the teacup subconsciously. Qin Ran, you broke Su Shen's hand and his movements are difficult now, more so than your hand. Lin Wan lifted the teacup, shaking it slightly and saying in a gentle voice, you only injured your right hand, and your left-handed too, so your injury won't affect your daily life at all. Why do you bother to fight this lawsuit that isn't beneficial to you? Lin Wan slowed her speech and saw that Qin Ran wasn't speaking. She thought that she had listened to her and couldn't help but say a few more words. Qin Ran didn't look at her and just knocked the teacup slightly with her left hand. She leaned back lazily against the back of the chair, carefree and unruly. She raised her eyebrow. Continue. It's just messing around among kids. Lin Wan slowed down a little and continued speaking, you and that girl didn't suffer much anyway, so why must you cling on to it? Even if it was self-defense, because of the little injury you suffered, the most he will be punished with is to pay for the medical expenses after the lawsuit. He might not even be sentenced to jail, so why bother? It was such a good reason. Because her hands were fine, because Pan Mingyue was fine, so everything could be treated as if nothing had happened. Qin Ran felt a fire rise inexplicably in her heart, hot and dry. It only needed a little spark of flame to be ignited. Oh! Qin Ran tilted her head and looked at Lin Wan at that moment, her lips curled and a low chuckle in her throat. And if I don't? What if I want to investigate it? Lin Wan was a little surprised and raised her eyebrows slightly. She didn't expect Qin Ran to be so stubborn. Because of her good marriage, the Lin family basically followed her words, so she was used to being overbearing and always ordered people around. Here is 1.5 million yuan. In addition to the Su family's 1 million yuan, I will compensate for the other 500,000 yuan, Lin Wan said in a suppressed tone and took out the check from the bag. She then pushed it to Qin Ran's side. Lin Wan's patience had reached its limit. 1.5 million yuan was already an astronomical figure for someone who had never seen big money since young. Lin Wan knew Ning Qin very well. She was selfish, timid, vain, and greedy. Her daughter was probably the same. Qin Ran looked at the check on the table and lowered her eyes. Lin Wan picked up the teacup again and took a sip. Then, she saw that Qin Ran was staring at the check and said, this is a check, you can go to the bank to exchange it for cash. Qin Ran just chuckled casually. Did she really think she was a fool? She didn't even know what a check was. Did someone come and find you? Let me guess, was it Deputy Shen? Qin Ran's voice was very soft as she stared at Ning Qin and said in an undulating voice, what benefit has he given you? What big favor has he done for you? Was it worth letting down your dignity and putting on a show as a good mother? Ning Qin and Lin Wan didn't expect Qin Ran to have guessed it. She was actually accurate. Ning Qin pursed her lips and finally couldn't help but say, Qin Ran, how could you say that? What have you learned from your grandmother all these years? Since when have you cared about me since young? You only know how to finger point at this moment. Qin Ran raised her hand and threw the cup on the table. Bam! She looked at the brown coffee swaying in the teacup and felt very disinterested. If there's nothing else, I'm leaving. Qin Ran pulled her chair and stood up. 1.5 million yuan is enough for you to live a carefree life for some time. Young girl, don't bite off more than you can chew and have too high of a standard. When you fall miserably, the gains won't make up for your loss. Lin Wan opened her mouth intentionally after sitting at the side calmly. Did she think that 1.5 million yuan was too little? She wanted her to know her place. Qin Ran nodded and looked at Lin Wan. She didn't drink the coffee on the table, just licked her lips and said, I also think you're right. One shouldn't bite off more than they can chew, or they will fall miserably. Lin Wan heard her words and felt her heart jump suddenly. She thought about it and couldn't figure out what was wrong. She watched as Qin Ran turned and left the coffee shop. Lin Wan smiled gracefully and said, I remember that you have a grandmother in the city's hospital. Your grandmother's ward and doctor have all been arranged by my brother. Qin Ran's footsteps halted and she turned sideways. Her dark eyes did not seem panicked as Lin Wan had imagined. On the contrary, it was undulated and extremely cold. Are you angry? Lin Wan was accustomed to power and didn't think there was anything wrong with her behavior. Of course, I wouldn't do anything to harm your grandmother. But you should also think about it, you need our Lin family's help even to find a hospital and a doctor, so, Lin Wan chuckled softly. You can guess. Do you think I will let you find a lawyer in Yuncheng who is willing to help you fight this lawsuit? Ran, just listen to me. Ning Qin heard this, panicked, and said with a dry throat. Sigh, what a big issue. A clear male voice sounded from behind the door lazily. Lawyer Qi, did you hear that? If you don't come to Yuncheng, we will degenerate to the point where we can't even find a single lawyer, all right. Chapter 62. Who told you she was left-handed? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 62. Who told you she was left-handed? Cheng Wan had intended to wait outside. Lu Xiaoying had gotten out of the car and had said he wanted to drink coffee for a long time. Cheng Wan thought about it and also went to the coffee shop. There were very few people in the coffee shop at that time, so he saw the three people sitting by the window at first glance. Cheng Wan stood at the door of the store. Qin Ran's back was to him and he couldn't see her face from this angle, but he could see that the woman opposite her had her chin raised high in an arrogant and bossy manner. Lu Xiaoying ordered a cup of coffee from the lady at the counter. 1 cup for takeaway, thank you. Cheng Wan didn't want coffee. He just leaned slightly on the counter and stared lazily over at Qin Ran. He bit his cigarette and didn't move. After taking the coffee, Lu Xiaoying was about to go down. He had found an excuse to enter but didn't really want to disturb Qin Ran. Before the two of them reached the exit, they heard a voice that made them feel uncomfortable. You can guess. Do you think I will let you find a lawyer in Yuncheng who is willing to fight your lawsuit? Their voices weren't low and could be heard clearly as long as they paid attention. Both of them knew about Su Shen. It seemed the woman was threatening Qin Ran. Lu Xiaoying had been with Cheng Wan for so many years and had yet to find anyone who dared to compete with Master Wan in Beijing. Those who dared to do so had all been suppressed by Master Wan. Indeed, Cheng Wan's footsteps stopped, and he turned his head slightly and waited. Without any expression on his face, he said 3 concise words, Lu Xiaoying. Lu Xiaoying had already taken out his phone and pressed the numbers. Without waiting for Qin Ran to speak, he said directly to the person on the other end of the phone, Lawyer Qi, did you hear that? If you don't come to Yuncheng, we will degenerate to the point where we can't even find a single lawyer, all right. It was almost October and the weather was still hot. There weren't many people in the shop in the afternoon, so the air conditioning had been turned off. There was an inexplicably dry heat in the air. The sudden voice made Qin Ran's explosive anger disappear temporarily. Qin Ran turned sideways and saw Lu Xiaoying holding his phone with one hand and his other hand in his pocket. He was looking over with a smile and a raised eyebrow, but his body exuded a strong stance. Lu Xiaoying lifted his chin at Qin Ran and then continued talking to the person on the other end. Qi Qingjun, who's kidding with you? Come immediately. He hung up the phone. Madam, I don't ever play around. I'll let you find lawyers, as many as you want. Cheng Wan looked at the two of them. You can guess too. If you will die or if I will die. Cheng Wan's eyes fell on Qin Ran's face and then slipped to her right hand. He said in a low voice, Come, let's go. Qi Qingjun. Lin Wan was familiar with this name. Some time ago, her husband's family had gotten into a serious economic dispute. It had originally been a dead end, but Old Master had eventually invited this lawyer Qi who had never lost a case before. Lin Wan had married into a prestigious family, but even that family was almost at the bottom rungs of the circle in the capital city. As for the top rungs, she had never even touched them before. It was also because of this incident that she knew that this lawyer Qi possessed remarkable skills and was very famous in Beijing. If it wasn't because he had owed Old Master a favor, Old Master wouldn't have been able to hire him. Lin Wan stared at Cheng Wan and Lu Xiaoying. Their clothes were good, but there was no brand. Ning Qing's pupils shrank when she saw them. The memory of Cheng Wan holding a scalpel in front of her at the hospital was fresh in her mind. She turned pale. Lin Wan glanced outside as the three of them got into a black car. From far away, she only saw the very obvious license plate with the word Jing on it and a Volkswagen logo. She smirked and sneered. Those two must also be from Beijing in order to know lawyer Qi, but does he think I don't know Qi Qingjun? How could it be so easy to hire lawyer Qi? Lin Wan put away the check on the table, but her expression wasn't good. She had thought that the girl had never seen the world before and could be dealt with without much effort, but now, it seemed like it was a little troublesome. She faintly felt a sense of unease. At the side, Ning Qing held her teacup and took a sip of coffee with slightly trembling hands. Qin Ran's hand was bleeding, so they drove to the school doctor's office in Cheng Wan's car. It was lesson time and the school doctor's office was empty and quiet. Qin Ran sat on the stool at one side, her legs sloping and her jeans a little too short for her, revealing her thin ankles. Cheng Wan took a bandage and propped the back of Qin Ran's chair with one hand as he retrieved the medicine from behind, his expression slightly cold. The two of them didn't care much until Cheng Wan leaned forward. The two were extremely close and Qin Ran breathed lightly. Cheng Wan paused for a moment and quickly looked away, his eyes settling on her right hand. I've told you many times not to use force on this hand. Cheng Wan lowered his head and opened the gauze. He then checked the wound and looked displeased. Were children so rebellious nowadays? He threw the bloody gauze into the trash can and took out a cotton swab. His voice was cold, but his movements were extremely careful. It's my right hand, anyway. I'm left-handed, so it's fine. Qin Ran held her chin with her left hand and smiled indifferently. Isn't your right hand still your hand? Otherwise, you might as well not want it. Cheng Wan's voice was lowered and sounded undulated. But strangely, Qin Ran could hear his anger. Qin Ran glanced at him sideways and said, I was kidding. Your wound is very deep. If it doesn't recover well, it will leave a scar and hidden dangers. Cheng Wan nodded and then picked up an ointment to apply on top of the wound. Don't use any force, understand? Qin Ran nodded. Don't be angry, I just forgot that my right hand was injured. Qin Ran supported her chin and smiled absent-mindedly. Anytime I bleed, I'll come to find you here, and then it'll be fine. Cheng Wan was stunned. He felt as if a stone had dropped into his heart, causing ripples on the surface. He responded and slowly began to bandage the wound. Ning Qing didn't go back with Lin Wan. She went to the hospital instead. Why are you here now? Ning Qing usually visited Chen Shulan in the morning and only stayed for about an hour. Her timing had always been regular. So Chen Shulan felt it was strange to see Ning Qing in the evening. Ning Qing picked up an apple and peeled it. She had obviously not done this in a long time and her movement was slow. It's about Ran Ran. Ning Qing was silent for a while before finally saying, she has had a conflict with teacher Su's son. It's just a dispute amongst children, but they want to take it to the court. She went over the matter briefly. Finally, she sighed and said, Mom, Ran Ran only listens to you. Help me say a few words to her. She has injured her hand a little, but both of the other party's hands are broken. Why did she have to offend the bureau? What did you say? Chen Shulan stood up in worry. Ran Ran injured her hand. It's her right hand, and it has been stitched. She is left-handed, so it won't affect her. Before Ning Qing could finish talking, Chen Shulan interrupted her. A few stitches on her right hand. Who told you that Ran Ran is left-handed? Her right hand. Do you know how important it is? Chapter 63. I want one of his hands. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 63. I want one of his hands. Chen Shulan clutched her chest and her eyes darkened, about to faint. The nurse beside her quickly supported her. Chen Shulan had never been angry at anyone before due to her gentle temperament. Ning Qing's mind was in a mess and she quickly supported her. Mom, are you okay? Chen Shulan held onto the table as her body trembled. She gasped and raised her head. How is Ran Ran's hand? Although she didn't ask much and didn't know much about young people's gadgets, she knew that Qin Ran played the violin well and the teacher from Beijing had even visited her. Mom, sit down first. Ning Qing didn't expect Chen Shulan to care so much about Qin Ran's hand injury. She helped her onto the bed and said, her hand is all right. She's in school now, so don't worry. Chen Shulan gasped and her breathing returned to normal. Mom, did you say that Ran Ran isn't left-handed? What do you mean? Ning Qing poured a glass of water and handed it to Chen Shulan before clearing her throat and asking. Chen Shulan didn't take the water and just stared at Ning Qing. Her eyes were cloudy, but she knew everything. You don't like Ran Ran, right? Chen Shulan's voice was soft, her expression was sullen and she was in low spirits. Ning Qing's expression changed. Mom, I admit, I'm biased towards you, but Ran Ran is also my daughter and my flesh. What if it was Yuer? If her hand had been injured because of Su Shen, would you tell Yuer to settle? Chen Shulan asked her softly. How could it be the same? Qin Yu was doted on in the Lin family and was very talented in playing the violin. Lin Wan protected her so much as well. If her hand had been injured by Su Shen, besides Lin Wan, even Lin Qi and the rest wouldn't let Su Shen go. But before she could say this, Ning Qing stopped. Look, this is the difference. Chen Shulan coughed a few more times and looked out the window. Ran Ran has to be managed by someone. I once thought that I could entrust her to you before I die. Mom, you. Ning Qing sobbed and felt uncomfortable as she reached out to help Chen Shulan. Chen Shulan brushed her hand away. She held onto the bed and got up by herself, letting the nurse help her get her clothes down. Mom, what are you doing? Ning Qing was stunned and also stood up. I have to see Ran Ran. Chen Shulan gasped and her eyes were wet. If I can't even protect her and stand by her side, do you really want her to be all by herself? Mom, your body is already like this, how can you go out? Ning Qing held Chen Shulan in panic and said, I'll listen to you, I'll listen to you. I'll treat her well, don't be angry. Doctor. Doctor. Call the doctor. Qin Ran was half lying on the table, and the cold fragrance floated over from the opposite side. She hadn't slept for almost 2 nights. She had almost taken all the sleeping pills and they still didn't work. But now she was drowsy. Cheng Wan finished treating Qin Ran's wound, and when he looked up, he saw that she had fallen asleep on the table. His left hand was pressed down by her sleeve. At this angle, he could see half of her face under the shadow. Her long eyelashes were drooping down and the bottom of her eyes was light blue and black. Cheng Wan sat on the opposite side for a long while before he whispered, "How could she fall asleep like this?" Lu Xiaoying smothered his cigarette and came in from outside. He had seen the wound on Qin Ran's hand once. Lu Xiaoying had suffered many injuries since young, big and small. An injury to his abdomen had almost killed him before. But at the sight of Qin Ran's stitched wound, he couldn't bear to look at it. Lu Xiaoying suddenly understood why it had been the doctor who had helped stitch Qin Ran's wound that night. When he walked in, he saw Cheng Wan gently pull his hand out. Lu Xiaoying asked with a smirk, "She's asleep." Cheng Wan nodded and motioned for Lu Xiaoying to follow him out. The two of them stood in the yard. Cheng Wan took out a cigarette but didn't light it, just clamped it between his lips. "Has Qi Qingjun arrived?" Lu Xiaoying took out his mobile phone to look at the time before touching his ear studs. "He got onto the plane when I called, so he should have just gotten off." Cheng Mu checked. "That Lin Wan is from the Shen family." "Shen family?" Cheng Wan squinted his eyes and tilted his head, looking confused. He seemed to be thinking about what the Shen family was. "Actually, I don't know very well." Lu Xiaoying coughed twice. There were hundreds of families in Beijing and young Master Lu only remembered a few. He touched his head and said, "Anyway, they're done for." "Yes," Cheng Wan responded in a frustrated low tone and still didn't light the cigarette. "I want one of Su Shen's hands. Is it appropriate?" Lu Xiaoying knew about internal affairs. "I heard that the Su family is Qin Ran's teacher." Lu Xiaoying seemed to know a lot about Qin Ran despite only knowing her for a short while. It seemed like the Su family had a close relationship with Qin Ran. Cheng Wan turned slowly and said with dark eyes in an unhurried tone, "So what?" Lu Xiaoying laughed. He had forgotten, this was Master Wan who wasn't afraid of anything. The next day, Ning Qing accompanied Chen Shulan for one night and felt mostly guilty when she occasionally thought about Qin Ran's right hand. She thought mostly of Chen Shulan's words. Qin Ran's right hand. She pressed her temple and felt vaguely vexed as she entered the Lin family's house. Lin Wan was sitting on the sofa. She had obviously rested well. She had delicate makeup on her face and was applying lipstick. When she saw that Ning Qing was back, she glanced over. "How was it? What did your mother say?" "My mother." Ning Qing's hands tightened. She was a little afraid of Lin Wan, especially since Chen Shulan wasn't willing to advise Qin Ran. With Qin Ran's hot temper, she surely wouldn't let it go. "Forget it, I get it." Lin Wan sneered. "In that case, don't blame me for not thinking for your elder daughter." "Little aunt." Ning Qing's eyes tightened. Ran, besides her right hand, her left hand. Lin Wan kept her lipstick and stood up, not bothering to listen further to Ning Qing. In the end, whether it was Qin Ran or Ning Qing, they weren't even considered opponents in her life and weren't even worth a ripple. Besides Qin Yu, Lin Wan didn't care about anyone else in the Ning family. At this time, Lin Wan's phone rang. It was Deputy Shen, so she picked up. Lin Wan was calm, to begin with. But after she heard what he said, her expression changed drastically. Chapter 64. Am I late? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 64. Am I late? Didn't you say that Qin Ran won't pursue him anymore? Deputy Shen's voice was trembling. The court summons has come and the result of the sentence will come out today. I have been suspended. Lin Chi had promised to help speak for Deputy Shen, but Lin Wan hadn't. As long as there was an opportunity, Lin Wan would grasp it. In her eyes, Qin Ran was just her sister-in-law's daughter from her second marriage and was different from Qin Yu. She was accustomed to the luxurious power in Beijing and so didn't even bother about people like Qin Ran. She had thought that this small matter was easy to resolve, but how was she to know that Qin Ran had only been found yesterday? And the court summons had come today. It was really fast. It was a slap to her face. Lin Wan's face turned dark. In the Lin family, even Lin Chi had to give her face. She was used to it and had never faced opposition before. The good deed your daughter has done. Lin Wan hung up and sneered, her chest heaving up and down. What's wrong? Ning Qin also froze. Lin Wan took the bag and started packing her stuff. Su Shen was in a car accident on the way to the court. Coincidentally, the brake was broken. Ning Qin, do you know how many years of sentencing will be given to intentional murder? Also. Lin Wan walked to the door and sneered again. Guess, do you think she can find a lawyer today? Aunt Chang followed behind Lin Wan respectfully and sent Lin Wan out. Ning Qin sat down on the sofa, feeling anxious. She picked up her mobile phone with shaking hands and started to call Qin Ran. Ran, we're discussing the content of the group debate today, do you want to do it together? After lessons, Lin Siren took her pen and notebook and asked Qin Ran in a soft voice. Qin Ran sat in her chair with her eyes lowered. She pressed on the phone that was ringing wildly and used her left hand to flip her books. I'm only there to sell my face. Just give me the speech when it's time, you guys can go, Qin Ran said casually. Lin Siren also felt like Qin Ran wouldn't be discussing anything there, so she nodded and went out with her book. Class 3.9's debate contest was full of passion. Carrying a basketball, Xiao Xing sat down on Lin Siren's table. He turned his head and said, you actually participated in such a boring activity. I would have signed up if I had known. Qin Ran collected the foreign documents and responded casually, I'm just there to sell my face. She picked up her phone and stood up. In the past 2 days, she was wearing loose school uniform pants and a white T-shirt without a coat. From the side, the wide school uniform pants made her seem extremely thin. Xiao Xing smirked. He put away the basketball and turned around. Are you going to the cafeteria? Lin Siren asked me to line up for you. No, Qin Ran tucked her phone into her pocket and grabbed her thermos. She then said in a slightly moody tone, I'm going to the school doctor's office to change my ointment. Su Yaoguang had told Xiao Xing clearly to avoid the school doctor's office unless necessary. Xiao Xing had always kept this in mind. He sent Qin Ran to the gate of the school doctor's office and carried the basketball to the basketball court. In the early morning, there were only a few people in the school doctor's office. Qin Ran opened the door and immediately smelled a fragrance. She looked inside. Lu Xiaoying was whispering to Cheng Mu, while Cheng Wan was facing a mannequin while standing lazily and holding a scalpel in his hand. He turned back slightly when he heard the door open and said in a low voice, You're here. There's porridge in the pot. Lu Xiaoying kicked Cheng Mu. Cheng Mu immediately went to the kitchen and filled a bowl of porridge with wolfberry. He brought it to the table and set a few plates of common early breakfast. In the process, he kept peeping at Qin Ran. The phone in Qin Ran's pocket was still ringing wildly. Looking at the steaming porridge on the table, her cold body and originally low spirits warmed up almost instantly. After she finished eating, Cheng Wan put down the scalpel and walked over slowly to check the wound on her hand. Qin Ran lowered her eyes and looked at the injury on her right hand. Her grandma didn't know about her hand injury. Besides her, almost everyone around her thought that she was left-handed. Even she was a little confused herself and did whatever she wanted in her daily life. She didn't pay attention to her injured right hand. She had bumped into it 2 days ago and it had always bled. She was so used to it that she didn't feel anything. However, Cheng Wan had told her to come over to eat lunch and he could check on her wound. Subconsciously, Qin Ran had always paid special attention to her right hand when doing anything. She thought about what Cheng Wan had told her and tried her best not to put too much force on it. There's no bleeding. Cheng Wan loosened his grip and poured a glass of water into the thermos and handed it to her. He looked at her with clear eyes and said, "It's okay today." After Qin Ran went to class, Cheng Wan looked at her back as she disappeared from his line of sight, before slowly withdrawing his gaze. Court opens today. Lu Xiaoying finished reading the text message on the phone, leaned over, and smiled. Uncle Zhang's actions are quite fast. Yes. Cheng Wan then picked up the scalpel again, his index finger tapping twice on the back of the knife before saying lazily, "It's fast." Cheng Mu was paralyzed while listening to the conversation between them. He was filled with ridicule in his heart. How could Jiang Hui dare to not hurry? If he didn't hurry, Master Cheng was going to flip Yun Cheng upside down. Yun Cheng, the court. Qin Ran didn't answer Ning Qing's phone. Ning Qing had no choice but to follow behind Lin Wan. Today was a workday and the rush hour had passed, so Yun Cheng's roads weren't too crowded. Within half an hour, they arrived at the court. Nobody from Qin Ran's side was present. Seeing that there was no lawyer on her side, Ning Qing really panicked. She was trembling, and at this time, she didn't even care about her pride anymore and just called Lin Qi. She walked to a corner and said in an anxious, low voice, as soon as she spoke, she talked about which lawyer would be willing to take Ran's case. The Lin family had opened up new markets and had been busy recently, so Lin Qi didn't know about Lin Wan's every move. Hearing Ning Qing's incoherent words, he sorted things out and said in a low voice, "Give the phone to my sister." "Brother, don't bother about this matter." Lin Wan was fearless. She hung up directly and looked at Ning Qing lightly, sneering. "I told you that nobody would dare to take up your daughter's case." At this time, the noisy courtroom suddenly fell quiet. Everyone was looking in one direction. At the gate, the police officer opened the door and a young man walked in, followed by 2 other people. He turned and took the documents from them, then raised his head and smiled. "I'm Ms. Qin's lawyer. I'm not late, right?" There was absolute silence in the court. Chapter 65. Do you really think I'm easy to bully? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 65. Do you really think I'm easy to bully? The man looked down at his watch and chuckled lightly. "It's 9, I'm on time." He sat down and opened the document on the table. Then, he looked at the judge and said very politely, "You can start." The Su family had hired a middle-aged lawyer with framed glasses and an aggressive appearance. But the young man in front was smiling, clean and gentle. His every movement brought calmness and even a sort of elegance as if he was a celebrity. He didn't really have the Su family's lawyer's imposing aura. The middle-aged lawyer presented the evidence and spoke eloquently. He fought for Su Shen and kept going back to the point that Su Shen was injured. The young man put his hand on his file and only occasionally looked up at the middle-aged lawyer. He looked gentlemanly and had no obvious change in his expression. He kept silent. The middle-aged lawyer presented a series of dossiers, each of them very organized. He spoke until his throat was dry. After he finished, he drank a glass of water and nodded to the judge. "Judge, my statement is finished." Ning Qing stared at the young man closely, feeling uncertainty in her heart. Why didn't the young man say a word? Wasn't he Qin Ran's lawyer? Why didn't he dispute and argue against him? He was still so young, could he be just a quack? She was still thinking about this when the young man finally stood up. He didn't present the information and just smiled first. Under the special authorization of Ms. Chin, I will act as the litigation agent to participate in the court proceedings. Before that, I will read in detail with regard to the case materials. I have 3 questions to put forth to the other party. Firstly, according to the provisions of the law, those who have committed murder, homicide, robbery, kidnapping, and other violent crimes that seriously endanger the safety of the victim, or causes unlawful infringement of the casualty, are not entitled to excessive self-defense. Hence, the excessive self-defense that the other party has raised up does not hold. Thirdly, the young man had clear arguments, sufficient evidence, clear organization, and refined language. There seemed to be an obvious magical power that attracted everyone, even Lin Wan, without any traces. His wording was compact and his structure cautious. It was clear he had done his homework. The middle-aged lawyer couldn't find a place to interrupt nor rebut and was sweating from the top of his forehead. Mr. Honorable Judge, I believe that you will be able to conclude that this is the most rigorous and grave accusation. The young man smiled slightly. In less than 20 minutes of his speech, he had led the jury to watch a big show. The lawyer on the opposite side was simply stunned by his statement. Not to mention the jury. This lawsuit ended very quickly. Lin Wan was still in a daze. The middle-aged lawyer stood up from his table and stared at the slightly familiar face of the young man. Excuse me, you are Beijing's Junfan law firm's Qi Qingjun. The young man gathered his documents and spoke elegantly. With just one sentence, he showed off his ability. Yuncheng wasn't far from Beijing, and most of the lawyers here had graduated from Beijing. No one that engaged in law didn't know about the Qi Qingjun who had sprung up in the capital. Lin Wan felt like that young man was familiar before. As soon as the other party spoke, she plopped back on the chair. Nobody around spoke, and Lin Wan's face turned pale suddenly. Qi Qingjun. Was it really him? Qi Qingjun's reputation and power in Beijing had been recognized as valiant. He was a law advisor to a number of highly qualified enterprises. Back then, the Shen family had spent so much effort to ask for Qi Qingjun. Now, Qi Qingjun was actually seen in a place like Yuncheng that wasn't even considered a second-tier city. If Old Master was to know about this. Lin Wan shivered and suddenly realized that she had really messed up this time. In the evening, the school doctor's office. The alarm clock is set, remember to take your medicine. Cheng Wan leaned back on the sofa and handed the phone to Qin Ran. Let Cheng Mu drive you. Qin Ran took the phone and smiled casually. It's okay, I'll just call a taxi. She was supposed to go to the hospital to see Chen Shulan, but she didn't actually want to go. Chen Shulan had called her all of a sudden and told her she wanted to see her. Qin Ran knew that Grandma would probably begin to suspect if she didn't go, so she put on her long-sleeved gown and got ready to go to the hospital. Cheng Wan didn't speak and only glanced over at her, his gaze cold and clear like a deep lake, his emotions imperceptible. Then be careful. Cheng Wan wasn't happy, but he didn't say anything else. Could he possibly tie this kid to the car? When Qin Ran left, Lu Xiaoying came over and whispered, "Say, she can't even move her hand anymore, why is she still acting so cool? Can't she just whine to us?" Sigh. At the thought of Ning Qing, Lu Xiaoying felt gloomy again. He thought about it again. With such a mother, who could she possibly show her weakness to? Cheng Wan glanced at him, his mood also low. Go away. Then, he pulled on his collar and said agitatedly, "Tell Qi Qingjun to come over." Outside the school. Qin Ran was crouched on the side of the road while waiting for the bus. She was holding her phone in her left hand, looking at her alarm. She had anti-inflammatory drugs and a series of medicines to promote healing in her hand. The doctor had prescribed 2 kinds of oral medicines, but she had forgotten to take them. She never cared about such things and only took them when she remembered. She wouldn't die if she didn't take them, anyway. Cheng Wan felt like her attitude wasn't good. She had gone back to the dormitory to get a medicine bottle and poured the medicine out bottle by bottle. She carefully counted the remaining pills and found that she had missed out on 6 pills. Thus, she was setting an alarm on her phone to remind herself when to take her medicine. The bus came. Qin Ran kept her phone. Half an hour later, she arrived at the hospital. Qin Ran had just entered the inpatient building when she saw Ning Qing and Lin Wan at the payment area. Ran. Ning Qing saw her and immediately waved her over. Lin Wan was thinking about something, but she also raised her head when she heard this. She never looked straight at Qin Ran before, so it was rare that she smiled at her. Your aunt is paying for your grandma's hospital fees. Ning Qing went over and wanted to pull Qin Ran's hand. Qin Ran avoided it. Ning Qing's movement paused. Qin Ran looked up and glanced at them. Don't be angry at me regarding Su Shen. Lin Wan didn't seem to be embarrassed and changed the subject, and this matter came up. We're family, it's best for us to be on good terms. My brother's expenses from last time have been used up, so I have come to pay for your grandma's hospital fees. She wanted to use this method to persuade. Or to threaten Qin Ran to compromise with her. Qin Ran stared at Lin Wan. She narrowed her eyes and chuckled lightly. Grandma came to Yuncheng for you to take care of her, and I never intervene in her affairs. I might have compromised too much in regards to matters about Grandma, causing you to develop the wrong idea. Do you really think that I can only be forced to listen to your words and be at your mercy? She tucked her phone in her pocket and pulled out a bank card. She said calmly, please pay for the ward number 1102. Chapter 66. How Sacred is Ms. Qin? You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Chapter 66. How Sacred is Ms. Qin? The nurse was still on duty and was sitting at the cash register. She took the card and was stunned for a moment. The 11th floor of this inpatient building was a VIP special ward. Rich and powerful people stayed here, and the nurse was accustomed to seeing various bodyguards. She reacted and asked, how long. Each room in this inpatient building was equipped with a dedicated care worker. The cost of a month of accommodation and care was 37,000 yuan. In addition to the medical equipment and equipment inspection fees that occurred once in a few days, it cost at least 50,000 yuan a month. Qin Ran said casually, 1 year. 1 year's accommodation and nursing expenses amounted to more than 400,000 yuan. The nurse swiped the card and asked Qin Ran to enter her password several times before she opened the bill. After paying, Qin Ran took the bill and turned to walk towards Chen Shulan's ward. Lin Wan and Ning Qing stood a few steps behind, dumbfounded. In a trance, Ning Qing seemed to have seen the grumpy Qin Ran who sulked and hit others as described in the information. Qin Ran's reputation for being difficult to mess with wasn't just a rumor. Very few people in the school dared to touch her, and her aura was so strong that even Lin Wan didn't dare to breathe too loudly. In Chen Shulan's ward, the doctor was holding her records and asking her questions routinely before ending work. Qin Ran didn't interrupt him and just leaned on the edge of the bed. She tilted her head slightly and listened carefully to the doctor. Once the doctor left, Qin Ran pulled out a shorter chair and sat by the hospital bed to pour a glass of water for Chen Shulan. The jacket she was wearing today had long sleeves, and when she didn't roll it up, her hand would be covered. Her right hand was covered by the sleeves and the gauze couldn't be seen. Chen Shulan smiled naturally as if she didn't know that Qin Ran's hand was injured. How have you been sleeping lately? Chen Shulan touched her head and asked softly. Qin Ran hadn't slept well these 2 days, probably because she had been too tired. But since yesterday, her sleep quality had improved. She put her left hand on the bed and chatted casually with Chen Shulan before feeling drowsy. When she fell asleep, Chen Shulan stopped smiling. She slowly lifted the quilt and waved the nurse away. Then, she squatted beside Qin Ran and pulled her sleeves up to reveal her covered right hand. It was wrapped in layers of gauze. Chen Shulan stared at it solemnly for a long while. She knew very well what kind of person Qin Ran was. She fought with others since young and didn't care about where she was injured. If Chen Shulan hadn't found out about her injury sometimes, Qin Ran really wouldn't have even dealt with the wound. Even if it still bled after bandaging it twice, it was considered normal. How was she like Qin Yu, who would fall to the ground while crying, letting Ning Qin and Qin Hunqiu coax her? Qin Ran's right hand was wrapped in layers of gauze and Chen Shulan knew that she had a few stitches on it. She felt terrible and only saw that something was strange after a few seconds. The wound was clean and fresh and there wasn't a trace of blood. It looked well taken care of at first glance, completely different from what Chen Shulan had thought. Chen Shulan looked at the clean gauze and fell deep in thought. The Lin family's house. Ning Qing and Lin Wan hadn't paid the bill successfully and didn't dare to see Chen Shulan, so they went back to the Lin family's house in a sullen mood. Ning Qing was feeling very confused. Lin Qi had pushed back several meetings today to come home earlier. He didn't expect Qin Ran's case to end so quickly, and for the trial results to come out as well. In fact, it usually took 1 to 2 weeks for a trial to be over. His gaze fell on Lin Wan and he asked with his fingertips clasped on the lid of the teacup, "What happened to you today?" "Brother, I thought." Lin Wan had always felt like Qin Ran was a high school student with no financial ability, so she had never taken her into consideration before. But who knew that things would become like this? "I said before that Ran should decide how to handle matters." Lin Qi put the teacup on the table with a bam and said with a pair of shining eyes, "This is Yuncheng, not your capital. What do you mean by there will be no lawyers for Ran's case as long as you're here?" Lin Wan, listen, is that something an elder should say? Ha! He was a businessman and was always open-minded and magnanimous, so even the way he spoke was also humble. It was rare for him to be so angry. The servant didn't even dare to breathe. Lin Wan hadn't been reprimanded by Lin Qi for many years. She felt like he wasn't giving her face now and flushed instantly. Lin Qi's eyes turned to Ning Qing again. "And you? What were you doing following her blindly? That's your daughter, not your enemy. You don't even believe your own daughter, how could you be a mother? Lin Wan, I want you to pack up and return to Beijing tomorrow." He had a headache from his anger and was too lazy to talk nonsense to these two women. He took his phone and went upstairs to call Qin Ran. Lin Jinxian pursed her lips and looked at his phone. In the past 2 days, he had called Qin Ran to ask for some information. Her tone had been fairly good and she hadn't said anything. Only now did he know that Qin Ran's hand was stitched. His expression went pale as he went upstairs to change his casual clothes and took his car key. Lin Qi was calling Qin Ran on the phone and was surprised to see him take the car key. "You're going to see Ran." His son had always been indifferent. Ning Qing had been married to the Lin family for so many years and he had never heard him call her mother before. Even Qin Yu had to take many years for him to warm up to her. Lin Jinxian nodded and then frowned again, remembering how she had stayed silent at the police station that night. "I wonder how her hand is." "Wait." Lin Qi thought for a moment and went to the study to take a bank card. "The password is 60, take this to Ran." Lin Jinxian nodded. Qin Yu was practicing the piano, but her thoughts were on what was happening downstairs. When Lin Jinxian was walking down, she opened the door of the violin room. "Brother, where are you going?" Qin Yu came out holding the violin and smiling. "I just practiced a new piece and it's much smoother now. Do you want to listen?" Lin Jinxian had enjoyed listening to her play recently. "No, I just told Qin Ran I would find her in school." Lin Jinxian raised his eyebrows, his voice light. Qin Yu gripped the violin tightly and pretended that it was nothing. "Oh. The school's medical office. Chi Qingjun put down his documents and surveyed his surroundings, wondering what kind of magic had made Cheng Wan come all the way here. Cheng Wan leaned lazily against the table, looking like a mannequin. He was quiet and attentive and had his eyebrows lowered like a painting. "Brother, we have telepathy. I just called you yesterday and you got on the plane too." Lu Xiaoying patted Chi Qingjun's shoulder and chuckled. Chi Qingjun frowned and avoided his hand in disgust. "Go away, who has telepathy with you?" He thought for a while and then looked at Cheng Wan. "Master Wan, is Ms. Qin some kind of sacred being?" Cheng Wan put down the scalpel on the table and tilted his head as if he had heard wrongly. "What? What sacred being? She's just a pitiful one." Lu Xiaoying snorted softly. "And she doesn't know how to whine." "Huh, no way." Chi Qingjun was stunned. "Then why did the 129 Detective Agency approach me personally to let me come to Yuncheng and solve this case?" Chapter 67. Boss Qin is the real boss. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 67. Boss Qin is the real boss. Lu Xiaoying looked at Chi Qingjun as if he had seen a ghost. When he called Chi Qingjun yesterday, he had been at the airport. Lu Xiaoying had thought that Chi Qingjun had received the notice in advance. "No way, did you get it wrong? What's with 129? Lu Xiaoying was rarely serious and solemn. "They take this kind of trivial matter too." Lu Xiaoying couldn't accept it. He didn't have much contact with the core members of 129 and only knew that there were a few great experts inside. Out of the experts, one of them was especially expensive and was the most difficult to deal with. But what did it have to do with their little pitiful friend? As for Qin Ran being a member of 129. What a joke. Lu Xiaoying didn't even think about this possibility. Cheng Wan also narrowed his eyes and stopped paying attention to his mannequin. He dragged a chair over and lifted his chin towards Chi Qingjun. "Tell me. It's just." Chi Qingjun thought for a while and said, "I didn't ask much, but it seemed to be someone with the surname Feng." "I know." Lu Xiaoying patted the table and seemed to have realized something. "Uncle Jiang told me before that Feng Lucheng had contacted the Public Security Bureau. He's the mayor of Yuncheng, and it was probably due to his approval that the court could be opened so quickly." Cheng Wan had an impression of Feng Lucheng. He was a capable person and had been promoted quickly. "I originally thought that he was showing favor to Master Wan, but it doesn't seem like it." Lu Xiaoying pondered over it. So, he did it for Qin Ran. But why was it necessary for him to go so far to find Chi Qingjun? He thought that nobody except Master Wan would do such a boring thing. Qin Ran also knows the mayor. Lu Xiaoying was really surprised. He was also especially curious. How could Qin Ran know Feng Lucheng? He suddenly felt like Qin Ran was mysterious. Her identity was obviously nothing much, but the people involved with her had bigger and bigger backgrounds. Feng Lucheng could be ignored, but 129 wasn't so easily ignored. Cheng Wan didn't speak. He had never checked on her background before and had only investigated her files in Ninghai after this case had happened. His understanding of Qin Ran was limited to her relationship with Ning Qing and the Lin family. Her family background was simple and her parents were divorced. Those who played politics were mostly shrewd, so Feng Lucheng didn't seem like a good old man. "Let's go back." Cheng Wan reached out and took his coat. "I'll revisit the file of Ninghai's 712 case from 3 years ago." The sky was almost dark when Qin Ran went from the hospital to the school. The street lights outside the school gate were turned on. Lin Jinxian was standing under the street lamp, his slender figure tall and straight. At this time, the first evening self-study was taking place and many students had taken advantage of this time to come out for supper. Lin Jinxuan's eye-catching appearance attracted a lot of attention. Watching as Qin Ran got off the taxi, he frowned slightly, his gaze moving to her hand. Is your hand okay? It doesn't hinder my daily life. Qin Ran raised her eyebrows. Then. Lin Jinxian didn't know how to get along well with girls. If it had been Qin Yu, she would have cried to him and he would then give her his bank card. As for Qin Ran, she made it seem like it was nothing. Their personalities were too different and Lin Jinxian was at a loss. You have my number on your phone. If you're in trouble, remember to call me. Lin Jinxian sighed. He thought about Ning Qing's attitude and understood why Qin Ran was behaving like this. Take this card. He thought for a moment and then gently patted her head before saying in a slow voice, have you eaten dinner? Yes. Qin Ran avoided him, still very cool. She didn't say much and just frowned slightly. Not far away, Qin Yu was standing with a group of people with her lips pursed. She already knew that Lin Jinxian had come out to see Qin Ran, so she had asked the driver to drive her over, giving the excuse that she had left her papers in class. Who is that person next to Qin Ran? He's so handsome, and he seems quite familiar. The baby face beside Qin Yu whispered. Qin Yu didn't speak and just grasped her book tighter with her fingernails. Lin Jinxian was difficult to get close to. She had tried several years before getting closer to him. Usually, she was the one sticking to him every day, and she rarely saw him take the initiative to get close to someone. This scene was really annoying to her. She just didn't understand what else Qin Ran had besides her face. She was so studious and was so good at the violin, but why did Qin Ran have everyone surrounding her when she didn't even do anything? Qin Ran didn't seem to talk much to Lin Jinxian and entered the school gate within a few minutes. Lin Jinxian looked at her back for a few minutes before turning back to drive away. Let's go. Qin Yu didn't go back home and went to her class. She glanced down at her cell phone, her eyes dull. Qin Ran didn't go directly to class as the guard called her. Qin Ran, come here, you have a courier. Qin Ran looked good, so the guard recognized her. Recently, all the guards showed concern over her hand and asked more and more questions. It's a little heavy. The guard picked up the box. I'll help you carry it to the door of the dorm, then you can let the dorm auntie bring it up for you. He picked up the box easily. Qin Ran had wanted to say that she could do it herself, but the uncle was being very enthusiastic. She touched her chin, smiled, and turned her head slightly. Then help me get it to class. Okay. There were only half of the students in the class tonight. Because the class had ended, they were all sitting around. Lin Siren was discussing a question with Xia Fei when she saw them. She immediately put down her book, took the box, and thanked the guard. Then, she asked, Ran, what's this? It's for you. Qin Ran sat back in her chair and leaned against the wall, propping her legs up casually. She then took the book in a foreign language called on the table. She had wanted to dig out for candy, but thinking about her hand, she gave up. Lin Siren's eyes lit up. Then can I open it now? You can open it whenever you want. Qin Ran flipped open her book. Lin Siren immediately asked for a blade and opened the box. Other students came over to watch, and even Xiao Xing came over to sit on the edge of Lin Siren's chair. Hurry up, the class is starting. It looks pretty big, is it a doll? Let's see what gift our big boss Qin gave you. Xiao Xing said. Before he could finish, he stopped suddenly and looked at Qin Ran, stunned. The crowd who had originally come to watch also fell silent. Chapter 68. That picture is Qin Ran. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 68. That picture is Qin Ran. Qin Ran wasn't easy to get close to, but after a while, they found that she was a good person. She wasn't like Su Yaoguang, whose coldness could reject people from 1,000 miles away. It was mostly girls who came to watch the show. There were also some boys, but besides Qiao Sheng, nobody else dared to go closer and just smiled from afar. Yan Shi was definitely one of the most popular stars online. As a capable singer, his appearance was also way above the common crowd even when placed among the other famous stars. But what he was most famous for was his strength in the music industry after 5 years. In 5 years, he had already won the Chinese award for his first song during his debut. After his second song became popular in China, it also trended abroad. He didn't produce many albums every year. As a professional singer, he produced at most 10 songs each year, and each of them was a best feature. His style was changeable. Dark, rock, healing, love songs, fresh songs. He sang everything. Since his debut, he had released a total of 6 albums, most of which were limited edition and sold out the moment they were released. Yan Shi had thousands of fans, but there weren't many fans who really collected all his albums. His early albums were basically gone. But right now, in the box in Lin Siren's hands were 6 albums neatly placed inside. The most important thing was that these 6 albums also had a pedestal on the bottom and had a trophy in the shape of a trumpet on it. Everyone in China knew that 3 months ago, Yan Shi had won the highest international honor award, the Grammy Award. When the news broke, Yan Shi had caused the Weibo server to be down for 2 hours. The whole nation praised him. No more than 5 people had received this award in China, but they were all old artists and there was also a band amongst them. Yan Shi was the first person to win this highest honor award with his own personal songs. Many people on the internet said that he looked like a girl, that he had a sugar daddy behind him, but no one ever insulted his abilities. This Grammy trophy was in the shape of a trumpet and had been put on Weibo for a week, so almost everyone knew about it. After about a minute of silence, Xia Fei pointed to the trophy and stuttered, "Oh. Oh my God." Qiao Sheng also cleared this throat. "This is." Qin Ran thought that just a few albums probably didn't need such a big reaction. She put aside her book and tilted her head slightly before seeing the trophy on the album. Qin Ran. I found someone online and ordered from her. Qin Ran was silent for a moment before taking the trophy back. She put her finger on the trumpet and tapped along the edge. "The album is yours." She finished talking. The crowd also burst like a balloon that had been punctured. "Is this my husband's album? Oh my God, there is his poster as well. I queued for 2 hours last time and couldn't even buy it. And this is even a signed version." "Ah, what are you doing, Lin Siren? Let us take a look, let us look. Just once." These female students didn't even care about Qiao Sheng and squeezed him aside. The group of girls didn't stop until the bell of self-study rang. The monitor shouted twice, and when nobody bothered about him, he rubbed his nose and sat down again. The person sitting at the back door stared at the door so that he could inform the class when the director came. When nobody was paying attention to her, Qin Ran opened her Weibo and found an image. Expressionlessly, she sent 4 words, "Are their brains damaged?" The class was still talking about the albums. A group of girls was chattering away, and even the boys were whispering. Wu Yan's expression wasn't very good. She was also a member of this debate contest and was sitting behind writing her manuscript with a pen while checking the information, but everyone around her was talking about Qin Ran and Yan Shi's album. Let's quickly organize the debate materials, it's starting in a few days. With Qiao Sheng around, she didn't dare to offend Qin Ran and only said this as she stood up. Lin Siren immediately asked Qin Ran to help her keep the albums while she took out her notebook and pen to discuss at the back. She got up and stopped again. Ran, are you coming?" "No," Qin Ran threw her phone on the table and replied. "Right, well, I'll just help you guys read it when it's time." At the back of the classroom. Wu Yan heard this and pursed her lips, her grip tightening on the pen. She raised her head and glanced at Su Yaoguang, who was holding a pen and writing seriously. He had just taken his gaze away from Qin Ran and didn't say a word. Wu Yan felt even more depressed. The next morning, Qin Ran went to the school doctor's office. Lu Xiaoying wasn't inside and Cheng Wan helped to inspect her wounds. Her fingertips were a bit cold and the gauze was a little wet. He stared at it for a while and sneered. "Did you dig a mine yesterday?" Qin Ran's hand rested on the table and the wound that had been healing yesterday was bleeding again. She also glanced at it. No wonder it hurt. "No, I was hit by my roommate yesterday." Wu Yan had been carrying a large basin of water when she was knocked by a girl who had come to look at the album. She had hit the table with her hand and had even been drenched in water. Cheng Wan was silent for a while, thinking about something. Then, he said, "Your agility is useless, eh?" Qin Ran put her hands on the table and glanced at him. She didn't talk back for once and just laughed. This scene was quite familiar. When they were young, Qin Yu's hand had been injured, so she had pouted and went to find Ning Qin in Qinhanxiu. They had scolded her fiercely, but their actions had been light as if they were afraid of hurting her. Qin Ran supported her chin and smiled. When she looked back again, she saw a brown envelope wrapped in a file on the table. On it, 2 words were written. Ninghai 712. She paused, but her expression remained the same. When Qin Ran was about to return to class, Lu Xiaoying came back with his mobile phone. He saw Qin Ran and hung up the phone. Then, he greeted her and asked her about her hand before entering the school doctor's office. As soon as he entered, he saw Cheng Wan sitting expressionlessly on the chair with a bloody piece of gauze in front of him. He sneered. "Did you scold Qin Ran again?" Cheng Wan withdrew his gaze and stared at him before nodding absent-mindedly. He turned his gaze to the documents and picked it up, saying softly, "The case file of 712. I looked over it twice and found a few suspicious points. She was indeed present, but the information has been erased." "Oh." Lu Xiaoying reacted and realized that Cheng Wan was talking about Qin Ran. He didn't know what role to play. Li Erong arranged an English paper during the afternoon. Qin Yu took out her phone and said quietly to the English representative, "I'm about to find the physics teacher, let me help you get it." The English representative was very grateful. When she arrived at the office, Wu Yan was over there to pick up the English papers. Her expression wasn't very good. "What's wrong?" Qin Yu took the English papers and asked casually. Wu Yan was in Qin Yu's clique. They were all girls and she could feel that Qin Yu also didn't like Qin Ran. "We have a debate, and the people in the class have all voted for the representations." Wu Yan had managed to squeeze into the group after much difficulty and could participate with Su Yaoguang, but Qin Ran had entered without even raising her hand. At the thought of this, she felt both angry and jealous. Only Qin Ran didn't do anything. Furthermore, they have all unanimously decided that Qin Ran should end the speech, but on what grounds can she do that? She didn't do anything and can still use our efforts to deliver her speech. What if the teacher asks her about it? Qin Yu listened to her and fell silent. Then, she laughed. She probably won't mess it up. Wu Yan snorted and said a little maliciously, "Who knows? There are a few English idioms in it and she might not say it well." The two of them walked all the way and heard a few people discussing Qin Ran. They were still talking excitedly about Qin Ran when they passed and didn't even look at Qin Yu. Qin Yu grasped the test papers tighter, not used to the feeling of being ignored. They walked to the corner. Wu Yan had to go upstairs and Qin Yu had to go downstairs. "Help me take the papers, I'm going to the toilet." Qin Yu paused and handed the papers to Wu Yan. "Okay." Wu Yan took it. Qin Yu didn't have a pocket and handed her phone to Wu Yan. Wu Yan took it and put it on top of the test papers. Qin Yu's phone was unlocked. It lit up at a single touch. Inside was an album. Wu Yan didn't want to pry into her privacy, so she reached out to turn off the phone, but when she looked at the wallpaper that had lit up, she paused. The background was very dark, and the street lights were turned on. There was a black Mercedes on the side and a man who looked quite old with his back to the camera. The two of them seemed to be holding hands. Wu Yan's gaze fell on the woman. In the picture, the woman's face was very clear. Wu Yan's heart thumped quickly when she recognized her. The person in the picture was Qin Ran. Chapter 69. Jealous of the Big Boss. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 69. Jealous of the Big Boss. Wu Yan glanced around and saw that there was nobody around. She didn't know what mentality she was under when she took out her mobile phone and took a picture. This was the first time she had done such a thing and she felt a little uneasy inside. Qin Yu returned and didn't find out, so she heaved a sigh of relief. She went back to her class. Wu Yan's desk mate saw that she was distracted and leaned over. "Are you okay?" "Yeah." Wu Yan returned to her senses and nodded. The classroom was filled with students messing around and was very noisy. The next second, the entire class fell silent suddenly. Wu Yan thought that the teacher had come and looked at the back door automatically since the back door was closer to the stairs. At this one glance, she was unable to take her eyes away. There was indeed someone standing at the back door. He had a tall figure, a pair of phoenix eyes, clear and distinct facial features, and the vigorous aura of a youngster. "It's Wei Ziheng." Several girls around Wu Yan spoke in a low voice and couldn't help but lean over to look. "He's so handsome, I think he's comparable to Su Yaoguang. Don't we need to debate about who the campus king is? Who is he looking for?" People of this age always had a natural curiosity about the opposite sex, especially towards Wei Ziheng, who was a particularly famous school bully. He always had a sense of mystery in the students' minds. Even if they knew that his results weren't good, the girls still chased after him. He had been in first middle school for 10 days and also lived on campus. It was rumored that the floor he stayed on didn't dare to make much noise every night. There was no major incident, but he was particularly hot in the forum. People paid attention to him no matter where he walked. Lin Siren was hugging Yan Qi's poster when she saw the person leaning against the door. She couldn't help nudging Qin Ran and asking, Ran, is he looking for you?" When she had first known Qin Ran, Lin Siren had been sent back by the school bully's lackey thanks to her. Qin Ran was still leaning against the wall, a lollipop in her mouth as she glanced over and touched her nose. "Yeah." Lin Siren got up and let her out. Outside the door, Wei Ziheng was standing straight. He stared at her right hand. "Sister Ran, who did this?" He had asked for a few days of leave and had come to class 3.9 as soon as he heard the news about Qin Ran. "Su Shen." Qin Ran grinned and seemed to be in a better mood. "I finally had the chance to send him in." He saw Mingyue. Wei Ziheng narrowed his eyes and cursed. "Damn it, why didn't I meet this bastard? I beat him badly." Qin Ran crushed the lollipop in her mouth and chuckled. "I beat your share too. That's good." Wei Ziheng thought for a while and then wrinkled his nose disagreeably. "Even if you wanted to send him in, you didn't need to put your hand on the line. Your hand is way more valuable than his cheap life." "It's okay, I have my limits." Qin Ran patted his shoulder. "Don't worry. If my grandpa sees this..." Wei Ziheng mumbled and then stopped. "Fine, I have to go to class. I'm in class 3.3, come find me if you have anything." The two of them spoke quietly so that nobody else could hear. But some discussion about them was inevitable. Qin Ran returned to her seat under everyone else's gaze. The class was silent. Late self-study. There weren't many people in the classroom. Almost half of the boys weren't in class. Today, Kyushu Tour's finale, they all went to the toilet to watch the live broadcast, Lin Siren said to Qin Ran. "It's the game you played last time, QTS is too handsome. He got 4 kills the day before yesterday and got into the final round. He will surely win YKT tonight and win the domestic championship. Kyushu Tour was a global card competition game. Lin Siren didn't know how to play, but it didn't stop her from joining in the crowd. That kind of exciting atmosphere was really moving. Qin Ran put her hand on the book and smiled. Yes, they can do it. By the way, Ran, we have almost finished writing our speech. We will be at the comprehensive building tomorrow at noon. Do you want to come and watch and prepare? Lin Siren took out her notebook and asked. Qin Ran thought for a while. You just have to familiarize me with it tomorrow morning. Then, she copied Lin Siren's English paper. Wu Yan was receiving the English papers when she heard them talking. She glanced over at Qin Ran and said impatiently when she saw her copying the papers, I'm collecting the papers. BDNV. Qin Ran glanced at her, then slowly copied the answer until she finished the last option before handing her the answer sheet. At noon the next day, Qin Ran went to the school doctor's office to change her medicine. Cheng Wan was on the phone and was shocked for a moment when he saw her. Lu Xiaoying sent away a female student and also came over, laughing. Qin Ran, you changed your style today. You look good. Qin Ran was wearing a long T-shirt today and not the white round neckline she usually wore. The material was very soft, light, and fluffy. It was rose-colored and somewhat long, hanging 10 centimeters from her knee. The hem was embroidered with fine white lace. She usually only wore black and white, so this vintage color looked stylish on her, and she looked as good as ever. She was extremely dazzling when she occasionally wore other colors. This rosy color also made her look elegant and her skin looked snow-white. Her legs looked long and thin in her black jeans. In fact, her clothes were very simple and unglamorous, but they somehow still looked good on her. Yeah. Qin Ran sat down on a chair. I have a speech at noon and I'm there to sell my face. The clothes are Lin Siren's. Lin Siren disliked her school uniform pants and insisted that she changed into her clothes. She even wanted to do makeup on her, though Qin Ran strongly opposed it. Cheng Wan was quite silent today and slowly changed her medicine. It was probably because she wasn't bleeding again. Qin Ran didn't really want to give the speech. Thinking about it, there were many people there and she was annoyed just at the scene alone. She spent a lot of time idling in the school doctor's office before heading to the comprehensive building. She was just on time and there were already many people in the classroom. Nearly 200 people were packed together, buzzing noisily like bees. They were very nervous. There were bonus points to be added this time, and they could be written into the curriculum vitae if they ranked a placing. They could then use it when applying for examinations or other things. 2 reporters from the news agencies were recording at the side with their cameras. The atmosphere in the classroom was tense. All the groups were discussing fiercely about how to deal with the question and answer segment. The crowd was restless and the atmosphere was extremely tense. Lin Siren had given the materials to Qin Ran in the morning. Qin Ran had looked over them and had read through the speech a couple of times. Lin Siren and the others were in their seats. Qin Ran saw them immediately in the 4th row. She put down her bag at the seat they had saved for her and said, I'm going to the washroom. Qin Ran wasn't in the least bit nervous. She went to the washroom and came back. The order of speeches was drawn by lottery. The number Lin Siren drew was average and wasn't advantageous. They were the 4th to present. Qin Ran sat down, cleared her throat, and opened the bag to take out her speech to take another look at it. However, she realized that the speech, as well as her USB flash drive, were gone. Chapter 70. What's the point of targeting Qin Ran? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 70. What's the point of targeting Qin Ran? Qin Ran threw the bag onto the table and suppressed the anger that was bubbling in her throat. The crowd was very noisy and she said each word with annoyance. Who came to my seat just now? Several girls were sitting together and Wu Yan was sitting on her right side, ignoring her. Lin Siren was on her left. She was holding her pen and constantly noting down her ideas in her notebook. She panicked when she heard Qin Ran's words and turned around to flip through her belongings. Your speech script is missing. I clearly put it inside for you though. Wu Yan, have you guys seen Ran's script and USB flash drive? Lin Siren looked up and asked. They all shook their heads. Wu Yan laughed satirically. We were the ones who put in the hard work for the script, how could you lose it so easily? Help find it. Lin Siren frowned and didn't want to start an internal fight at this moment. The rest of the girls also looked around. The USB flash drive was for the slides, but the script had been organized and consisted of 4 pages. It was really all of their hard work. If it was really lost, the speech they had prepared today would be meaningless. At this moment, Lin Siren suddenly understood Qin Ran's temper. Qin Ran's bag had been specially prepared for exams, so there were buttons on it and the things couldn't have possibly dropped. Someone must have taken it deliberately. The person who had taken them was obviously against them or targeting Qin Ran. But Lin Siren had to admit that this person's move had really worked. What would they bring to stage when the script was missing? What's the matter? Su Yaoguang turned around from the front row when he heard their voices and asked, his gaze cold. He was always difficult to get close to, and his voice was both soft and cold. Lin Siren stood up and looked around her. Then, she looked anxiously at Su Yaoguang. Our script and USB drive are lost. Su Yaoguang didn't expect this. Lin Siren was so angry her eyes were red. She looked around again, wondering who could have done this. Let's look around first. Su Yaoguang calmed down, stood up, and instructed. Look in the trash can outside the corridor. Qiao Xing took him as a leader and he had great prestige in class as well. As soon as he spoke, a few people stood up and went out. Wu Yan also stood up, but she glanced at Su Yaoguang and pursed her lips. Su Yaoguang had always had an opinion towards Qin Ran. In the beginning, everyone in the class could tell that he didn't really like her. Who knew that before long, Su Yaoguang didn't even refuse when Lin Siren had asked Qin Ran to do the speech. Now that the script was lost in Qin Ran's hands, he didn't blame her and was even helping her find it. A few people went out to help look around and it would be awkward if she didn't go as well. Wu Yan couldn't help but look at Su Yaoguang again. He was asking Qin Ran something with his head lowered. She looked away and followed behind the other girls. The speech had already begun and class 3.1 was presenting now. The speaker was Qin Yu, which wasn't a surprise. She held her paper and spoke with clear enunciation, and they were all listening seriously. She looked down and saw Su Yaoguang, who had been watching her, suddenly exit from the back door, followed by Qin Ran. The smile on Qin Yu's face faded and then she quickly smiled again. After her speech, the judges asked a few questions and she answered them one by one. The other members of the group also came up with several representatives. Next, the judges discussed and scored them. Qin Yu came down and went back to her seat. She was sitting in the 3rd row and was very close to Su Yaoguang. Why did all the people from class 3.9 go out? Qin Yu looked through the back door and asked thoughtfully. I think Qin Ran lost their USB flash drive and their script. Although class 3.9 had little movement, they were all sitting in a row, so they basically knew what had happened. Qin Yu turned her head in surprise. She lost the script. Qin Ran is in big trouble this time. The news reporters on both sides were all racked up already. If something were to go wrong, the school and the teachers would all lose their faces. Qin Yu appeared worried, but the corners of her lips were curled up. Class 3.9 searched around and finally found the torn script in the trash can and the USB flash drive soaked in water. Lin Siren clenched her teeth. Someone was obviously trying to frame Ran Ran. She must be jealous of Ran Ran. Everyone standing around the trash can fell silent. This was obviously directed at Qin Ran and was obviously a malicious move. Wu Yan couldn't help but blame Qin Ran. That's great, now our class doesn't even have our script. Wu Yan, don't say that. Someone couldn't help but pull Wu Yan's sleeves when she saw Qin Ran lean against the wall, her hands tightening around a mineral water bottle. Why can't I say that? I already said not to let her come, now she has harmed us. Su Yaoguang stared at her coldly. Wu Yan pursed her lips and stopped talking. The judges had already given their scores and the next one up was their class. Su Yaoguang glanced at Qin Ran, thought for a while, and then said in a low voice, Lin Siren, give me your notebook, I'll go up. He had also written a part of the script and the whole process had been organized by him. He remembered every point but just couldn't remember all the details. Without a manuscript, nobody else was more suitable than him. There's no need. Qin Ran glanced at Wu Yan, adjusted her clothes, and reached out to pinch the mineral water bottle. There wasn't any more water in it, so it crashed into the trash can and made a clattering sound before falling inside. She walked forward without looking back. I'll go up.